Hey guys, Mr. E here with a quick tips video. I've been asked how I installed these Neutrik PowerCon connectors and made them actually function. Here's the quick and simple answer. I designed and 3D printed these three parts. I installed them, and that's how I did it. Thank you. Just kidding. I'm not that mean. Yes, I did design these three parts. One goes to the hose connection, the flexible green hose. This one's right here, and this one's in the gun. This guy I designed to thread right onto the end of these connectors, these MS30, what are these? 3106, yeah, the 3106 connectors. So all it does is use this end, just goes right in there. Now to keep it from pulling out, I just wrapped a decent amount of electrical tape and then used a lighter or any type of heating element to kind of shrink the tape around the hose so it actually grips it pretty good. I did the same. Focus, stupid overhead camera. I did the same down here, so then kind of actually grips the metal. So then actually kind of grips the metal connector, part of the connector too. That's how that doesn't come off. Second piece I'm going to go over is this one in here. One actually screws into here. The way I did that is I got to design the threads to actually thread right onto this. And then the flex hose actually goes right in this gap right here and is retained by the lip. And the way that works is this goes on here. And then used a cable cut, like a hose clamp. And slid it all the way up here while holding it so that it won't fall back off. So then the black split won't fall off. Just released it. And now that pretty much can't come off no matter what, unless this plastic actually rips. Now to get it to look smooth like this, to get it to be smooth like this guy here, instead of with these fingers, all I had to do is cut them off, these two types of fingers off, and then I just wrapped it with a lot of electrical tape. Here's what it's going to look like when you try to thread it on. Yeah, this is a spare of one of these. If you can tell, I tried it two different ways. This one's actually aluminum tape. I think it looks a little bit more realistic than silver paint. Just gives it that more realistic metal look, in my opinion. So anyway, all you need to do is when you get your Neutrik connectors, is unthread the back cap, get these suckers on, get this thing on. Hopefully you can thread it. I can thread this darn thing. There we go. There you go. Completely contained. Everything ready to go in here. And that's the second connector. This is the third piece I designed. It actually lets one of these guys slide right in. Now you may be asking, how's that fit in there with the flange? Well, you actually had to cut off the flange completely, sand it down pretty smooth. You can't have any bumps, otherwise it won't rotate inside here, which is required, so you don't break wires off going from in here into your wand. Just spins. This actually just threads right into the wand, which is kind of tricky, getting these thread pitch and all that stuff correct. So I'm going to show you how I got that. Install that one next. Where the heck's the end of the tape? I put tape on here to kind of hide the plastic that you see here to here, because you can't really get a good paint match. And I just think it looks a little better. There we go. Finally it focused. So if you do this, you'll notice there's actually a screw on the bottom. You got to take that out first, otherwise you're just going to rip all your wires out. Let's see if I can get this out with one hand without dropping this thing all over the dang Allen wrench all over the place. There you go. Don't lose that. So to actually get this out, you're going to need to get your connector that if you mates to this, click it in there. Now you can see how it rotates without that screw. Pull it out just enough to see the wires. Well, basically the back end of the connector, and unplug it. And then you should be able to just unscrew this adapter without the possibility of damaging or twisting this guy too much to break your wires that are inside here. And there you go. Just pull it out. And then you can push it out the back if you need to. Do anything in here. So next I'm going to talk about how I did actually put wires from the actual Neutrik power con connector into the battery tray. First thing I did is I soldered a solid copper wire onto the, let's see, what is that? Which one's that? The neutral side, and a black wire to the load side. The load side is going to have to go to your positive, which is back here, the flat plate. The neutral, or in my case the brown and white stripe wire, goes to this side. Now since this brown and white wire is actually solid, what you can do is strip back just enough, get a tiny flathead screwdriver, and if my camera wants to focus, you can actually wedge it between the plastic back here and the metal spring plate, and then just shove the copper wire behind that plate. And once you pull the screwdriver out, as long as you didn't kink or bend the metal springs, as long as you did not bend or kink the metal plate, it should retain it just fine. So then over here on this side, what I did is, since this black wire is stranded, I actually just soldered the end to make it solid, and I wedged it between the plastic. Focus. Stupid camera, focus. What I did is I just wedged it between the metal plate and this piece of plastic. It works fine, hasn't pulled out or caused me any problems yet. That's how you do that part. The advantage, in my opinion, to do it this way is you don't actually have to modify the wand in any way. That's kind of what I was going for with all my pack mods. So when you want to put this back together, I don't know if my camera wants to focus. You can tell that, if you can tell, there's a little metal piece up here. That indicates it's the top of the connector. That's where, when you get it locked in, that's where this piece of, this yellow pin, this yellow lock pin, will actually engage. You want to make sure that's up. When it's correct, the line, the side with an L on it, will be on the right side of the wand, and the white wire or neutral side will be on the left side of the wand. If you're looking at it from back to front, just slide it back in. Not all the way, because then you will have a pin. It'll be a pin to get this back on. Just slowly get that on, and carefully. Kind of get it over all of this stuff, and then just use this to actually push this in. It'll make sure it stays at the right length or right depth, so that way then you don't stress these wires, any of these wires, and actually pull them off, or break them off of this guy. So use this as your guide, as your depth guide to actually seating the battery tray. And if everything goes good, let's See if I can thread this sucker in there. Yeah. One other thing is, forgot to mention, is these wires, you can't, for some reason, it doesn't like it when they're on both, one on each side. You kind of have to have them on one side, which is kind of a pain. Once you get it in there and just start at the thread, make sure that's at the top. And just carefully thread this into here. The main reason you don't want to break any of these wires in here is because they short together. You actually have a possibility of basically just breaking this guy. Because you're basically taking the positive and negative wires, shorting together to create full short. You can break this, or you can even break your proton pack. So be very careful when you do this. Give it a quick twist. Okay, let's flip it over. Now, with this hole, you don't want to drill this before you get this seated in here. Otherwise, you could have the hole over here on the top side or any place you don't want it. Someplace you don't want it. So then just carefully get this seated in there. Push it in. Don't do it all the way just yet. Because what you want to do is actually use your power con, this side of your power con connector. Carefully reinstall it and use this actually as your guide for this. So then you're not just trying to hold this piece that's going in here just to your fingertips. So just get it. Let's see if I can get this. There we go. And you can take it out once it's in there. I'm just trying to make sure it's seated in all the way. Yep. I'm using a button head screw. It's an M3 by, I want to say 10. This is a little too long. You want to use an M3 by 8 button head screw, because then it'll sit flush with this. Now when you drill this hole, you want to drill the one in 3D printed plastic, just slightly undersized for an M3, so like an M2 and 3/4 or so. And then in this one, you want to do it at most 2.5 millimeter hole, because then the screw you put in will actually cut threads into this piece, the actual connector, and retain the screw in this whole assembly, so it won't just fall out over time. So let me get this back together. Last step here. Now don't worry if you're not 100% perfectly aligned with these two holes aren't 100% perfectly aligned. As long as they're dang near close, this should actually thread into this guy and just rotate it very slightly if you smooth it all down enough. So let's see if that happens. Now this guy, since it's too long, I can't go too deep. Otherwise it'll come in and stick into this connect inside here, and then I can't, it'll basically be trying to put this guy in like that, and it won't go past it. So make sure you use a short enough screw, otherwise it's going to stick out in here or out here, like mine. Just about there. Looks just about right. Okay, that looks good. Let's test this connector again. And there you go. It's installed. So last thing I do is get electrical tape to hide everything. Make it look like the same thing. And just wrap it around. Get it kind of tight, so then get it pretty tight, because if you don't get it pretty tight, then you're going to have these gaps. Even if you get it tight, you won't have those. And there you go. That's it. Reinstalled. Functions. So there you go, guys. That's how I installed the Neutrik PowerCon type connector to the hose and to the wand. Links will be in the description for these PowerCon connectors. They aren't the real thing, but they're the closest thing I could find to it. They're dang near exactly the same. If you guys want any of these 3D printed parts, my email is in the description below. Just email me and I'll send you the STLs for 3D printing. So if you like that video, please hit the like button below. It helps me a lot. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. Other than that, all I can ask you guys to do if you're a new viewer is subscribe. A lot more of this kind of stuff to come, finally. So yeah, that's how I did them. Thanks for watching. Hope you liked it. Till next time. See ya.